First of all, introduce myself to you a little bit about myself, because if I don't do it now, then I'll have to repeat it about 20 times after Mass. So I'm just going to try to usually do this when I go to someplace new. And then I'll try to give a brief sermon, since I definitely went over time with confessions. My name is Father Timothy Geckle. I was raised in Ohio, just across the border, in the Sulphur Springs parish. I've been with the Sierra Marai my entire life. I've never known anything else. But in Latin Mass, Father James McGillivray was our pastor for most of my life, at least growing up. Then I went out to Omaha, Nebraska, to the bishop's school there in Omaha for high school, and then seminary right afterwards. And I was ordained in 2016, and served or helped out the bishop there in Omaha, teaching in the high school, sometimes in the seminary, and then traveling on missions on weekends. So covered a lot of different missions: South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, and then eventually started some missions in Arkansas, which started out very, very small, grew a little bit, and then they were able to, after a little while, to support a priest. So I moved down there about a year and a half ago, and we just this past year in both parishes just got a church. A lot of work, a lot of time, labor, money, etc. But we're trying to grow our parishes there and establish. When I was setting up, one of the ladies here was saying, "Oh, it might not be that much." Great, this is nice. It's not a church. Obviously, it's not a church. But this is how all of our churches started. The parish that I grew up in, my parents were driving, before we got that church, my parents were driving an hour and a half every Sunday to go to Mass at someone's home. They set up a chapel there. They had the Blessed Sacrament there. They drive an hour and a half every Sunday. And then they had this thing where, because they had the Blessed Sacrament there, the priest told the parishioners, we need to make sure that there are people here every single day to spend time before our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. So my parents would go down another day a week. There's a lot of fervor, a lot of devotion that kind of spread, and then they were able to establish churches and parishes. But even the biggest churches we have, the largest congregations, they started out, almost all of them, in someone's basement. In a basement, in a hotel room, a conference room. I've had Mass in a conference room, hotels, VFW halls, you name it, we've done it. And that's the way it starts. And if we hold true to the faith, we live fervent lives, we live devout lives, and practice what we preach, not just preach the gospel to others so that they can change, but we live it. That's what really spreads, and that's what draws people in. Remember that it's God's grace that brings about conversions, not so much the words we say, but God's grace. God can use us as instruments to bring about conversions by the words that we say or by the example we give, but ultimately it's God that gives the grace of conversion. And we have to remember that. We have to remember that. And this is kind of carrying over into the things I want to talk about in the sermon. One of the biggest things, one of the most important things for us in a mission, in a setting like this, is to remember to keep a spirit of charity and humility amongst ourselves, and then in our dealings with others. Because it's really easy for us to read off a quote from the popes or a quote from theology and say, this is the truth, and you're wrong, and I'm right. And we become hypocritical in our actions, in our words, in our behavior, where what brought conversions in the early church, in spite of the persecutions of the Roman emperors and everything, it wasn't the words necessarily. It was the Christians' actions. The pagans looked at the Christians and said, look at these Christians, how they love one another. And that was so appealing to them. It was their charity. It wasn't a false charity like that's thrown around in other heretical groups where, oh, you can just do whatever you want because we have to be nice to you. We have to be kind. And so go ahead and keep doing all of the horrible sins that offend God. No, true charity means we care for the person's soul. We want them to please God, save their souls, get to heaven, which means they can't commit sin. Otherwise, they're harming themselves. It's not a false charity. It's a charity that wants what is truly best for that person. But nevertheless, a generous, disinterested charity is the best way to promote the gospel, to promote true Catholicism. So I just want to, remind you all of that. I'm sure you're doing a great job of that already. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this many people. But remember that the devil wants nothing more than to get in here and get us at each other's throats about this discussion and that problem and this person and they said that. And it happens everywhere, whether there's a big church or a tiny congregation or somebody's house or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's always the devil trying to get in there, sow disunion, sow frustrations amongst ourselves, get us all riled up. Once we get riled up, our passions do the rest. The devil can say, okay, I've done my work here. And then we do the rest of the harm. We have to be on our guard against that, because that causes so much damage, and it hurts the cause for which we're trying to promote. We're trying to spread the faith. We're trying to lead others to God, especially by charity, by humility, kindness, generosity. That's the best way to do it. So I'm not saying don't go out there, live in a cave, and just, keep to yourselves and don't try to spread the faith. Not at all. But always do it in a way that, as if Christ was there with you, as if you were having that conversation with Christ at your side, rather than Christ turning away from you, saying, like he said to the sons of Zebedee, you know not of what spirit you are. Remember, James and John called them the sons of thunder. They wanted to call down fire and brimstone from heaven to destroy that 1 pound that wouldn't receive Christ. And Christ is like, no, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know of what spirit you are. And that's the same mentality we should have as well. So it's just some thoughts I wanted to share with you. Keep living the faith. Keep practicing in it in our lives. Remember, we're not just Catholics when we come to Mass on Sunday or whenever we have it available. We have to live our faith at home all the time. Otherwise, we're being as hypocritical as those who aren't Catholic. Live the faith, love the faith, love one another with true fraternal charity and humility. Humility is kind of like the groundwork. Without humility, no other virtue can grow. So if we're rooted in humility and kindness, God will bless you. God will bless your group here. Last thing, then I'll stop. Something that I've learned in the last year and a half since I've moved down to Arkansas and been working with these tiny little groups and trying to build up parishes and things is, you come with this plan like, we're going to do this, and this is how it's going to work, and this will happen. And then you try, and it doesn't work. And you get frustrated and get down, like, why isn't this working? We're trying to do the right thing. And then, instead of this working and happening, this happens, and that works. And then these people are brought in, and then that happens, and then it's good. And then you step back and you say, there's all of these good things happening, and God is definitely blessing this, but I have no idea how this is working. It's God working, it's not us. Make sure we let God work. Plan like everything depends on you. Work like everything depends on you. But remember that God can bring about good in ways that we can't even plan or imagine. And that's something we should try to remember with our mission here that we have going. Love God, live your faith. Seek to live in such a way that God will bless you, your families, this congregation. That is how we grow. That is how we grow, by virtue, by holiness. Please keep that in mind, and God will bless you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.